It was the blood-smeared handprint on the church's white altar that finally told the truth. Not the preacher's sermons. Not the family portraits hung proudly on the church bulletin board. No, it was that crimson print, half a scream, half a confession, that shattered the illusion of perfection. A mother pregnant. A son broken. A preacher pushed beyond salvation. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a massacre waiting to unfold. Welcome to Through Crime Channel, your portal into the most chilling true crime cases, unsolved mysteries, and the darkest corners of criminal history. If you are new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. In today's case, we dig deep into the facts, uncover shocking twists, and explore the theories that keep investigators and the world on edge. Stay back and enjoy. They were the kind of family people envied, at least on the outside. Pastor Elijah Boone, 43, had led New Grace Tabernacle in a quiet Florida town for over a decade. His wife, Naomi, 39, was beautiful, poised, and the embodiment of the perfect First Lady. Their only child, Micah, just 15, was quiet but smart. He played piano during Sunday worship and had that angelic look that made the congregation nod and whisper, "That boy is touched by God." But no one saw the cracks until it all exploded. It began with whispers. Naomi had started spending more time with Micah, long after homeschooling hours had ended. Some dismissed it as a mother being close to her only son. Others felt something was off. Then came the night of the fire. March 12, 2024. Flames devoured the Boone family home on the outskirts of town. Neighbors reported hearing screaming, one voice deep and guttural, another high and terrified. Firefighters arrived too late. 3 bodies were found in the ashes. Or so they thought. But not all the pieces fit. At first, authorities believed it was a tragic accident. Perhaps a gas leak. But it didn't take long before questions started stacking up like bricks. Why was Micah found in the backyard, face down, lungs full of smoke, when the fire started in the kitchen? Why did Naomi have bruises around her neck and signs of a struggle on her wrists? Then came the autopsy. Naomi was 16 weeks pregnant, and DNA revealed something no one was prepared for. The father? Her son, Micah. Detectives froze. They re-examined the scene. The kitchen bore signs of a confrontation. Shattered plates, hair strands, a knife missing from the block. And then, the discovery in Pastor Elijah's private office. Hidden beneath him books and Bible commentaries was his journal. And in it, a chilling entry dated 1 week before the fire. God, forgive me. If what I've seen is true, then I am not a husband. I'm not a father. I'm a fool. And she is the devil in my home. Micah doesn't know better. But she does. She destroyed us. I see no redemption in this. 3 months earlier, Naomi had been distant from Elijah. Their marriage, once a beacon of love, had grown cold. Counseling didn't help. She claimed it was menopause. Stress. Elijah believed her. Until one night he walked in on something that destroyed him. Micah was crying. Naomi's hand was on his back. Her voice, low, intimate. He didn't confront them then. He watched. Silent. Betrayed. Torn between father, husband, and preacher. That night he didn't sleep. He read verses of judgment, fire, and wrath. And he planned. The real shift came when investigators confronted Elijah, who shockingly was alive. He wasn't in the house when the fire started. He was in the church praying. At least that was his story. But security footage told a different tale. At 11:03 p.m., Elijah entered the house. At 11:48 p.m., fire erupted. At 11:59 p.m., a lone figure walked away from the woods behind the property. The figure? Elijah, holding a book. His journal. When they brought him in, Elijah didn't cry. He didn't protest. He said only one thing. "She turned my son into a father, and me into a killer." In his taped confession, Elijah detailed what happened that night. He had confronted Naomi. She confessed, said it was a moment of weakness, that she felt neglected, and Micah needed love. She begged him not to go to the police, promised they'd fix it. But Elijah wasn't there to fix anything. He was there to finish it. He snapped. First a blow to her head, then a pillow to silence her. When Micah walked in, eyes wide, horrified, he begged, "Dad, I didn't want this." But Elijah saw no son, only a defiler. And in that moment, Elijah believed he was carrying out God's judgment. He left the bodies, doused the kitchen in lighter fluid, and lit the match. He didn't realize Micah was still alive, barely breathing, until the fire reached him. The town was shattered. The man they called the voice of God was now behind bars. Naomi, once adored for her grace, was now whispered about with disgust. And Micah, who had once made old ladies cry with his piano hymns, was now remembered only as a symbol of something unspeakable. The irony? Elijah preached about grace every Sunday, but grace never reached his home. In the end, it wasn't lust or betrayal alone that destroyed the Boone family. It was silence. The silence of a woman who never asked for help. The silence of a boy who didn't know right from wrong. And the silence of a man who let rage become his god. But just when everyone thought the case was closed, new evidence surfaced. A letter, written by Naomi, dated one day before the fire, addressed not to Elijah, not to Micah, but to someone named Darius. Who is Darius? And what truth was Naomi trying to hide even in her final hours? The letter was found tucked inside Naomi's locked jewelry box, recovered from the ashes of the Boone home. Firefighters found it miraculously intact, sheltered between metal and velvet. Read, "Darius, if you're reading this, something has gone terribly wrong. I made a mistake, but not the one they'll think. Please protect Micah. Elijah, he knows. But he doesn't know the truth. He only sees what he wants to see, what I let him believe. But if anything happens to me, you must uncover it all. I'm scared of what Elijah might do, because he thinks he's righteous. But he's broken, Darius. So broken." Naomi. It wasn't just a cry for help. It was a warning. And Darius took it seriously. Darius Boone was everything Elijah wasn't. While Elijah wore suits and gave sermons, Darius wore denim and drove trucks. He hadn't spoken to his younger brother in nearly 6 years, not since a disagreement over church money drove a wedge between them. But Naomi had always remained in touch. Quiet phone calls, occasional visits when Elijah was away preaching. No one knew. When Darius received word of the fire and Naomi's death, he almost didn't come, until a sheriff showed him the letter. Then everything changed. Darius didn't trust the system to dig deep enough, so he started asking questions. First stop, Micah's best friend, Caleb. What Caleb revealed shattered everything. Micah told me once, his mom was scared of Pastor Elijah. Said he changed after losing the baby. Wait, what baby? There had never been any mention of a previous loss. Darius pressed further. A trip to the family doctor uncovered records Elijah had sealed. 2 years ago, Naomi had a stillbirth. At 5 months pregnant. The father listed? Unknown. But the chilling part? Elijah's journal had no mention of it. He documented everything else. Church issues, Naomi's moods, Micah's behavior, but never the baby. What? As Darius continued his investigation, a disturbing pattern emerged. Naomi had bruises before the night of the fire. Micah had once told a school counselor he was afraid to be alone at night with his father. And a therapist Naomi saw months before her death had written in her notes. Patient fears for her son's safety but won't elaborate. Deep religious guilt. Possible spiritual abuse? Then came the final blow. Forensic analysis of Naomi's pregnancy showed it likely began between late October and early November. But Micah had been away at a church youth retreat during that window. He wasn't the father. Elijah had manipulated the narrative, crafted a story of betrayal, incest, and divine punishment. Why? Because he was hiding his crime. The baby Naomi carried wasn't Micah's. It was Elijah's. And she had threatened to leave him, to expose years of abuse, manipulation, and religious control. But before she could, he silenced her. Micah walked in mid-assault. That's when the violence erupted. The bruises, the struggle, the fire. And Elijah let the world believe it was Micah who sinned. When the truth came out, Elijah's second trial began. This time he was charged not only with murder and arson, but rape, child endangerment, and psychological torture. The courtroom was packed. People cried. Naomi's sister took the stand and read the letter aloud. And when Micah, alive, traumatized, but brave, walked into that courtroom and testified, silence fell like a hammer. He told me I had to protect Mom. That God would punish us if we ever told anyone. I didn't get her pregnant. I didn't touch her. I swear it. And no one doubted him. In the end, the preacher who spent his life preaching fire and brimstone now faced it himself, from the very system he used to manipulate. Elijah was sentenced to life without parole. His church was shut down, his sermons erased, and his name now forever tied not to God's work, but to unspeakable sin. But still people whisper, because the question remains. Naomi's letter hinted at something more, something even Darius didn't understand. Tucked into the envelope was a photo. A man, dark eyes, tall, standing next to Naomi, holding a newborn. On the back, written in Naomi's hand, "If anything happens, find this man." He knows the rest of the story. But the man wasn't Elijah, and it wasn't Micah in her arms. So, who was he? And what truth was Naomi trying to reveal before her life was cut short? Darius Boone stared at the photograph for hours. He didn't recognize the man. He wasn't a family member, not someone from church. And the baby Naomi was holding looked nothing like Micah. This was a different child, a different time. The photo had a timestamp, 2008. Micah was born in 2009. This baby, this man, was connected to Naomi before Elijah ever rose to pulpit fame. And that made Darius suspicious. Digging into Naomi's past, Darius uncovered something chilling. In 2007, Naomi had briefly left town. For a break from Elijah. She told friends she was visiting family. But there were no family records. No flight, no bus ticket, no calls to any known relatives. However, hospital records showed a Naomi Thompson had checked into a women's shelter in Tallahassee under a different name. She was pregnant. She gave birth. And then, she vanished from their system. What happened to that baby? Using the photo, Darius worked with private investigators. Facial recognition software pinged on a man named Jeremiah Ward, now 33 years old, living in Atlanta, Georgia. He wasn't a criminal. He was a youth counselor. And he agreed to meet. Darius met Jeremiah at a quiet cafe. When shown the photograph, Jeremiah went pale. "I haven't seen that in years. I didn't even know she kept it." Then, with tears in his eyes, Jeremiah dropped the bombshell. "Naomi was my first love. We were only kids, 17, maybe 18. She got pregnant. Her parents flipped out. They forced her to give the baby up and marry Elijah, someone from their church. She didn't want to, but she told me later she was scared. Said Elijah made her feel like God would punish her if she didn't obey. That baby? A girl named Arya, placed in a closed adoption. But Naomi had secretly tracked her over the years. Naomi's final notebook, found in her old storage locker, contained pages of handwritten letters, all addressed to Arya. I know I failed you. I gave in to fear. But I promise I never stopped loving you. If anything ever happens to me, know that the truth matters. All of it. One of those pages included an address. A high school. In Orlando. A 16-year-old girl. Arya Boone. Yes, Naomi had found her. And they'd reconnected. Quietly. Secretly. And Elijah had found out. The narrative was now crystal clear. Elijah didn't kill Naomi because she was pregnant by Micah. He killed her because she exposed him as an abuser, a manipulator, and a liar. And worse, because she planned to reunite her children and tell the world the truth. Micah, Arya, Jeremiah. 3 souls bound by Naomi's pain, love, and a burning need for justice. But justice, it seemed, was far from done. Weeks later, Darius received a call from Naomi's former therapist. She'd found a USB drive Naomi had left during her last visit. Inside, voice recordings, audio diary entries, confessions, and one particular file labeled, "To Micah, the truth." Micah, if you're hearing this, then I'm gone. And I'm sorry. You never did anything wrong. I lied to protect you from a man I thought I loved. Your father, he hurt me. For years. And I was too scared to fight back. But now I see, you and Arya deserve to know who you really are. And more importantly, who he really is. There's one more person you need to speak to. Her name is Sister Abigail. She knows what Elijah did. She was there. The day I tried to run. Sister Abigail, the church's oldest deaconess. Blind. Frail, and long believed senile. But now her memory could be the key. In the final scene, Micah and Darius visit Sister Abigail at a care home. When they show her the photo and mention Naomi's name, she clutches the cross on her neck and begins to weep. And then she says, "He locked her in the sanctuary for 3 days. Said he was casting out demons. I told the elders. They turned a blind eye. Because Elijah had the power. But that girl, she was never the same after that. And now you want the truth?" She reaches for a box beneath her bed and whispers, "Then you better be ready. 'Cause I've kept everything. And God is my witness. It's time the world knows." Now, with the help of Naomi's son Micah, her first love Jeremiah, and a long-silenced church elder named Sister Abigail, the last chapter is about to be written. The box beneath Sister Abigail's bed was more than just a container. It was a time capsule of Elijah Boone's darkest secrets. Journals, letters, medical records, and cassette tapes Naomi had handed over in desperation, begging Abigail to protect them in case anything ever happened to her. "I didn't know what to do," Abigail said through tears, "but I kept them. And now it's time." Among the documents was a confession Elijah had once written, ironically meant for a sermon about temptation and sin. But in it, he admitted to violating the sanctity of his marriage, referencing the consequences of disobedience and a child born from punishment. The twisted theology masked the truth, but investigators, forensic psychologists, and legal experts could read between the lines. This was a confession. With Abigail's testimony, Naomi's recordings, and Micah's statement, the state reopened the case, not as a simple family homicide, but as first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances of abuse, coercion, and sexual assault. A grand jury convened. National headlines exploded again. Elijah Boone, once revered across Florida for his fiery sermons and charity work, was now dubbed the false prophet of blood. The courtroom was packed. Every seat taken. reporters, survivors, churchgoers, former friends. Even Arya, Naomi's long-lost daughter, sat in silent strength with Jeremiah. The prosecution painted the portrait clearly. Elijah Boone was a master manipulator who used the Bible as a weapon. He gaslit his wife into submission, isolated her, and controlled every aspect of her life. When she tried to leave, he killed her. When he feared exposure, he crafted a lie so horrific it diverted the public's eye from his sins, by blaming his own son for a pregnancy he caused. Micah took the stand. For the first time, a 16-year-old boy told the world, "My mom didn't die a liar. She died trying to protect me from the man you all called holy." The courtroom wept. Even the jury. It took just 3 hours of deliberation. Guilty. On all charges. First-degree murder. Aggravated sexual battery. Child endangerment. Abuse of spiritual authority. Judge Marlene Whitaker delivered the sentence. Elijah Boone, for your crimes against your wife, your children, and your community, you are hereby sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. May you never again have a platform to preach, nor a soul to deceive. It wasn't just about the verdict. It was about restoration. Micah and Arya, once strangers, became siblings in the truest sense. They chose to live with Jeremiah, who became their legal guardian, fulfilling Naomi's final wish. Together, they started a foundation in Naomi's name, the Naomi Project, offering legal aid, therapy, and shelter for women escaping domestic violence in religious households. A small wooden chapel sits empty. Dust settles on the pulpit where Elijah once screamed about righteousness. The church is being converted into a women's center. And on the wall, framed in quiet defiance, is Naomi's last letter. To anyone who reads this, know that silence feeds the devil. Truth sets the captives free. As the camera pans out, a final message fades in. Naomi Boone didn't just die a victim. She died a mother, a fighter, and a voice for thousands who still remain unheard. This story is a reminder that even behind the most sacred masks can hide the most unholy sins. But when the truth rises, no lie can bury it forever.